Certainly now. In case I gotta ask you a question, which I got a question to ask you.
You can slide down to the end of your table.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So we got lots of room tonight. I like it.
You guys have two people. It was a little hard. Trying to figure it out. They're, because of the book fair, there's one of your table missing, and so we couldn't figure it out. I didn't really have a lot to do with this, you have to kind of things. Put people's reasons. I just, you know, put my 2 cents in every once in a while.
And then do the supporting docs too. Thank you. Yep, perfect.
Good job, Mr. Somerville.
You signed in already.
Well, I'd like to welcome all of you this evening to the East Alma School Board meeting. Appreciate y'all attending. I will now officially call it to order, and the first item on the agenda is our pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, thank you for attending this evening. If the board will allow me 1 minute to veer off of it, since this is Veterans Day, I was wondering if any of the individuals in the audience or are members of the military or have served in the military. I know we have a board member that has. And any others? Okay, well, on behalf of the board, thank you for your service, Tyrell. Appreciate it, and wish all of you and your family members who did serve in the military happy Veterans Day. For the board this evening, we have tonight's agenda. Are there any questions or comments for the board on this evening's agenda? Okay. Seeing none, next will be hear the public. This is an opportunity for the public to address the board on non-agenda items. On the back of this evening's agenda are guidelines for addressing the board on such items. And so therefore, if any member of the audience would like to address the board, I invite them to do so. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to our student report. And I'll let you take over.
Okay, so my student report for the month of, I guess, half of October and half of November. So the fall sports came to a close. So the East Alma High School football team made it to the playoffs for the first time this year. Their time was cut short, but it ended with a pretty successful season. Volleyball and cross country ended their season as well. And then speech and debate have already started their season with having a meet in Kalispell and Columbia Falls. Skills USA welding competition went super great for some East Alma students as they were competing against Helena High and Townsend. In the intermediate division, we had a first place, which was Ryder Finstad, second Sawyer Finstad, and third, which is Cooper Larson. And then in the beginner division, which was first was Samuel Harvatine, and then second was Caleb Queen. Winter sports are starting up here pretty soon with boys and girls basketball and wrestling and swimming. And then the macho match is starting this week on Friday, which is where the boys of each grade are allowed to get together and to form a volleyball team. And the volleyball program hosts this. And then the winner of all, which they all play, then the winner of that plays the football coaches, which is this next coming Monday. Then the Apples versus Donuts game, which is next week on Wednesday, which is a basketball fundraiser game, which is where the Helena police officers play the teachers. And then I did have something come up with a student that they wanted to be brought to the board, which is the topic of having weighted GPAs for students. And that is all I have.
Okay. We'll take that under advisement and we'll discuss that in future meetings. Thanks, Brooke. Any questions for Brooke on student report? Okay. Seeing none, we will look at the administrator's report. And Brandon is not in attendance this evening, so therefore we'll go up to Radley and Gus.
Awesome. Well, you guys have my board report. I don't have much to add on to anything that I reported on or any Radley stuff, but I did want to touch on a really cool experience that I got to participate in, and that was the students versus teachers track league. We talk a lot about the high school and how it came to fruition and all the work that got put into it, and then actually seeing it in action with all these clubs that we talk about here and the board approving all these clubs. I got to kind of see it in action where students versus teachers in our the high school has a trap club, and we were able to shoot against them, and it was just a lot of fun, and it was really cool to see kids that I taught in 5th grade on that team in high school now, kind of seeing it all come together, and it was a lot of fun, and the teachers did prevail.
Gonna be my question. All right.
So how much trash talking came before, during, and after?
So honestly, I was pretty nervous going into it because we had, out of the 12 members on the team, we had four members that were in the top 5 in the state.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh boy, we got our work cut out for us. And then I saw Mrs. Holmes shoot, and I'm like, we're definitely not going to win. But then we pulled it out, so it was fun.
Any questions for Gus?
I just have one question on the
Yep.
discipline report.
Mhm.
Where was it, the weapon substances,
Mhm.
is that?
Yeah, we
is it
had
like
2.
vape, or is it pocket knives, or?
Yep, we had 2 cases of students bringing in vapes,
Okay,
unfortunately.
so on here it says 5, so is that a misprint? That's why it was alarming to me, is because it said 5.
That is definitely a misprint.
Okay.
We only had 2
Okay,
instances.
that makes it.
I shouldn't say only, we had 2 instances.
Well, that's
So-
5.
Yeah, I guess I'm padding my stats according to this. Yeah, no, there was 2, that should be 2.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Gus? Okay. Well,
Did you say it was a track league? Like
Trap.
Trap,
Mhm.
got it.
Gus doesn't run.
Or I guess I don't run either.
And with that, Lindsay, let's hear from EBMS.
So I don't know if I caught you up on it, but East Helena kids were asked to be leaders at the MTSS Youth Days. So they actually had a room and presented to kids and did activities. And ours was over communication. Kudos to Camp because he planned everything with the kids, and then Trish and I rolled it out with them, and we just looked good. So they did telephone where they went around and said something to show kids this is what rumors do when it goes from one kid to the other. And then we did a obstacle course where one kid was blindfolded and the other one had to give them instruction like 2 steps to the left, and they were my people because we were all doing this to know which side was left. And so we had a great time, and the kids got a ton of kudos, and that our room was the funnest. So it was really great to bring the 10 kids we ended up with, 5 high school, 5 middle school. For some reason, they got like real suites to sleep in, and Trish and I got regular rooms, so we got hosed. And then November 20th, the 6th grade will be going to Carroll for the girls' basketball game, and everything else is in my board report.
I have a correction, Stacy. It was 5 students, 2 instances. So it's not a
Okay.
misprint. It's 2 incidents, 5 students. That's what I
Okay.
meant. Sorry.
That's great.
So, any questions for Lindsay? I read that and I thought that was a really neat experience and stuff with that MTSS, so.
Yeah, it was fun.
Okay, Michael.
All right, yeah, you have my report. I think the biggest thing I noticed is just the increase in behaviors that you saw. Had a pretty good meeting with our discipline committee this morning. I think we got a lot of ideas out there to kind of help bring this down. One of them is we've asked our teachers in the past to revisit hallway expectations, routines, but something we came together with this morning at our meeting was we have our digital clocks that the students are always staring at, so maybe highlighting a few of those expectations weekly and going through those would be a good idea, so we're gonna start doing that. We had some other ideas come in, just to increase the positive behavior incentives. Something we're gonna look at doing too is asking Carroll College if we can continue our Champions of Character into basketball season. I mean, football season's so short, and I think the students just start to pick up on it, and then it's gone. So we just wanna kind of carry that over into basketball season as well. Other than that, you have my reports, and I stand for questions.
Questions for Mike? Okay, how about East Helena High School? Paul?
Okay, yeah, you guys got my report. I was, of course, part of the glorious trap team that won. Yeah, another really cool thing that I got to go to too was to the state track meet. No, sorry, state cross country in Missoula, which was a really cool meet as well. And it looks like, you know, our cross country program's really building itself. So yeah, that's about all good today.
Okay. Any questions for our high school principal?
I was kind of blown away by the numbers and college credits. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Trish?
Well, Lindsay stole half my board report, so, no, they really did a great job presenting at the MTSS conference. I think the part they enjoyed the most was the second day where they were actually part of serving in the VIEW community. And I was able to go with a group to one of the assisted living facilities and just watching the kids interact with some of the senior citizens in VIEW was pretty amazing. They really enjoyed giving back to the community before we left and came back to East Helena. And then as far as discipline, definitely trending down from where we were at last year. And I really attribute that to our teachers just really hammering home expectations, continuing having conversations with students, and really just following up and building those relationships with students. I mean, we're down a ton as far as referrals with 28 this year versus 72 in October of last year. So really just seeing a good trend going the other direction.
Okay. Any questions for Trish? Okay. Saying none, Sean?
All right, so ditto on what Brooke said, she did a great job for me. The only thing she forgot is last Monday, we did our winter parent meeting night, and that went really well, we had great attendance, I felt, and I don't talk very long because I think the parents would rather hear what the coaches have to say. I just hit a couple of the major points, and then did you say what day, when we start winter sports?
Next week.
The 21st is the first day, the day after the Apples versus Donuts game. So we hype it with the Apples versus Donuts, and we start with all of our winter sports. Any questions?
Any questions for AD?
But a great fall. I mean, we had a lot of good stuff happen. And Havers playing in the semifinals, so that's not a bad loss to those guys. So.
Out of curiosity, I listened to the game on radio, but you can't judge anything from the radio necessarily, but it seemed like there was quite a big contingency that came from East Helena. Can you give us an idea of approximate numbers?
Well, it's funny, we had a great crowd. We brought a pep bus up there. And the other thing was, Thompson Falls was in our stands cheering for us. They were on their way to Malta the next day for their playoff game. So they brought their whole team up to watch as well. No, it was great. I mean, Brooke was there. I mean,
Yeah.
it was great atmosphere.
I
You know.
would say, I mean, they're obviously Havers on the way other end, but I'd say we were louder.
Oh, without a doubt. I think we had a bigger
Yeah.
crowd than they did. So,
It sounded, just from the radio, and like I said, it's difficult to judge one way, but it sounded like there was, that East Helena traveled well. So,
Yeah.
we did.
There was a lot of people there.
Good. It shows a high level of enthusiasm by our community, the parents, and the staff, so thank you, appreciate that. Any other questions for Sean? Okay, I think that probably covers us. Trustee and committee reports of the board. I don't believe any of our subcommittees met.
You have a technology report?
What's that?
Tech report?
No.
Okay.
He's out, he's
we have some contractors working on our automatic door locks, and they were going late, so he's taking care of them. And he's just emailed or texted me before the meeting saying he's gonna be tied up for a while.
Thank you for keeping me honest. Like I said, no subcommittees met. I would report a little bit on the goings-on with MTSBA and the fact that, I don't know if you've seen the email or not, but our policy director for the Montana School Board Association has left the association on very good terms. We really needed to see him go, but he ended up coming up with a great opportunity. He will be the director of the Helen College Library Learning Hub. So Chris Goss is leaving MTSBA to go on to that opportunity. It'll give him, free him up with a little bit more family time, and I think he'll enjoy that change, but it was a shame to see him go. Tony Koenig will be his replacement, and so he will now be taking over services as far as policy, maintaining policies for those member schools. So, any questions on that? Okay. Now we'll move on to strategic planning and scanning for our future needs, and Dan, I'll let you get started on that.
You know, I don't really have much. The METG meeting would be kind of a topic to maybe talk about on this topic, but it has its own agenda item later in the meeting. And I haven't had much going on otherwise on that topic. The A and B is up a little bit this year, so we're seeing some growth, but we're going to talk about that a little later in the agenda too when we get to budget updates. So
Okay.
I think we can keep moving.
Okay. Does any members of the board or even the audience have any thoughts or ideas on scanning for our future needs and our strategic plan? Yeah, Mark?
Well, just a rumor, that I was asked by two different people in two different, if we were gonna build another high school. And I thought, where would that come from? And they said the paper said that we're gonna build another high school. And I thought, I'm always the last to know.
Sonny is denying any
involvement in future high school.
He's shaking his head emphatically, and so.
I don't recall seeing anything in the paper about it.
They didn't say which paper they were reading.
Fair
I don't know. I was just, it seems like it might be part of strategic planning, but I'm thinking it's way out there somewhere.
It is. That I would direct anybody who had serious questions about that to the work that we did with SMA Architects about 1.5 years ago. I felt like that was pretty comprehensive and that our infrastructure committee did a pretty good job of helping to put that together. And just based on that whole document that came together, any need for expansion at the high school is probably at least 8 to 10 years down the road is what I just remember from it off the top of my head. And there was never any talk with that group of building a second high school. It was more just where could we expand on our current campus to accommodate the students that we're going to see over the next 20 years.
I think we better look at that as part of our strategic plan.
Right, and that's definitely in there. And I think Scott and I actually talked about this when we met to set the agenda about the prospects of bringing that local committee together again after the first of the year to just review that whole plan and talk about where we're at with things and bring a report back to the board.
Yeah, when you start seeing backhoes in your back of your pasture, Mark, you ought to get a little nervous.
That's right.
Well, I assured them that, as far as I was concerned, there was no moving forward with a high school or any other building project at this point. So.
Yeah, we don't have anything on the docket right now.
Yeah.
Well, that could be. They could be confused with the Christian school.
That could be. Right.
Okay, any other thoughts or insights on our strategic plan? Okay, As always, we will revisit this on a monthly basis, so there will be additional opportunities to vocalize any ideas that we have. So moving forward, we'll now go on to notifications, retirements, and resignations.
There were two identified in the board packet. Karen Chafin's school food, she did not work with us for very long. And then Evan Lampman, a teacher here at EVMS, has had to leave his position for personal health reasons that are needing priority in his life right now. So,
Okay.
and those have been accepted on behalf of the board.
Okay. All right, any questions forward and on the notifications of retirements and resignations? Okay, seeing none, we'll go on to our consent action items. Before the board this evening, we have tonight's consent action items, which include the minutes of our regular meeting held on October 14th, the approval of current and past warrants, personnel actions, and enrollment approvals from surrounding school districts. Typically, there is no debate on consent action items. However, if any member of the board would like to discuss or debate an item separately, they can ask to do so. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent action items as presented. However, I would like to pull the minutes. Are there any other requests for?
I make a motion to accept the consent action items, except for the minutes,
Okay.
as presented.
We have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Stacy. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying no. Motion carries. Going back to the minutes of our October 14th meeting, there was a clarification I would like to make. It's probably more editorial than anything, but I thought we should pull it and get it changed. Under the trustee and committee reports of the board, where I was talking about Chairman Walters shared MTSBA is focusing on MCEL this week, so there's not been a lot of meetings. Then the next sentence, the COSBA executive director resigned effective in the end of June. That sounds like they have already resigned and it was effective the previous June. I did not want to make that intention or the minutes to be reflective of that. Tom is actually resigning and his resignation will be effective June 30th, 2025. So that's why we're doing the executive director search, and I'm on that committee, but I just wanted to clarify that. So
Do we need something to have that added into the minutes?
I'm asking that for that, and so
Well, I
otherwise,
move that we clarify that point in the minutes.
okay. And we can, what we can do is just approve that with that change mark. So if you want to approve the minutes with that change, that'd be an appropriate motion.
Yeah. Okay, well, I move that we approve the minutes with those clarifications.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Tyrell. Any questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed by saying no. Motion carries. Okay, we'll now move on to old business. And the first item in old business is finally our follow-up for the vandalism and insurance resolution.
Yep, so I included the information in your packet. If you had a chance to look at it, you can see that the total for the insurance claim related to the vandalism came out just slightly over $100,000, so significantly less than what our initial estimates were. That's partly because we probably overestimated what some things were going to cost, and it's partly definitely due to the fact that some of the contractors that worked with us on the restoration were very, I guess I would say, generous with their time and service coming in to help us. For instance, our plumbing crew came in, they pulled 4 of their full-time guys off other jobs to show up here at 7 o'clock in the morning that day to put that bathroom back together that had been destroyed. And they were here for, I think, close to 11 hours, and their bill was pretty minimal compared to the amount of time that we had with 4 journeyman plumbers working in here. Same thing with the electricians, the cleaning crew, and then we just had a lot of our own people step up to help out, including staff of East Valley Middle School and Radley School. It's taken a long time to get this claim together. That's not so much issue with the insurance company as it was, they were just waiting on us to verify some of this documentation, which we finally got taken care of. And I got an email from them today that they'll be cutting us a check probably this week and putting it in the mail, so we'll be made whole for those losses. The check won't be for $100,000, it'll be $95,000 because we do have a $5,000 deductible as part of our insurance policy. But I just wanted to follow up with the trustees to make sure that you knew that our insurance company was taking care of us and participating in helping us get things back together. It's very good news.
Very good. Any questions or comments for Dan?
The one other thing that I would add is we have received, help me out, 2 restitution checks
Oh, yes. Yes,
from the boys who were
from the
involved.
children.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So it amounts to a few $100s, but you know, it's just an example. The legal system is trying to build in some accountability there as well. So.
Okay, good, thank you, appreciate you clarifying and adding that. Any other questions for Dan on our insurance settlement and vandalism issues? Okay, seeing none, we'll now move on to MCEL reflections. We had several of the members of administration as well as Marcia, Mark, and myself in attendance at MCEL over the October weekend, or week. And so we usually just take this time out to discuss if anybody had any special thoughts or ideas or just something that impacted them or was interesting to them. So Dan, I'll let you throw out your...
Yeah, I included some pages in the supporting documents that I participated in a presentation with D.A. Davidson and McKinstry. And because I guess because I did that, D.A. Davidson ran some free analysis for us of where we're at as a district financially. And so I pulled a couple of those out of the slideshow and just put them in the packet for trustees to review. The first one is that's the page that Gus is on right now. So if you scroll down a little bit, this is our bonding capacity is what this amounts to. They call it debt limit. And you'll see the top number there. They show $129 million in bonding capacity, but we do have, or actually $161 million in bonding capacity, but we have $32 million in outstanding bonds from the high school and Prickly Pear Elementary that we're paying off right now, which leaves us at $129 million. The board had passed put in our policy back in 2017 that we would limit our bond capacity to 50% of what's allowed by law. And I don't know if you remember, Mark, but we did that to improve our credit rating.
Right.
And
so the bonds would sell at a better rate.
At a better interest rate, right. And so even with that 50% language in there, we're still at $48 million, which is, the reason that that's significant isn't because I'm going to encourage you to rush out and try to float a bond for $48 million. But when we passed the high school bond, we were nearly at 100% of our bonding capacity with the language that we had in place. And so in the 6 years since that happened, that's how much just our debt capacity has changed since then. And if something did come up where we felt like we needed to ask for taxpayer support to take on a capital improvement project, we've actually got some bonding capacity available to us right now. The second page, if you can go to that one, Gus, and these are the only two that I'm going to kind of spend time with you on, and the rest of them you can just kind of glance through. This page shows the impact of the high school bond, and this is pretty significant. The yellow or tan shaded column on the left shows what we publicized when we floated the bond issue back in 2018. And that estimate then was that it would cost about 152 mils per year. That's how much we would have to assess to make our debt payments on that bond. Then in the first year after the bond passed, we actually only had to assess 132 mils. to make that $15 million in, or the $2 million in bond payments. And then last year, we assessed less than half of what we originally estimated, and that's 74 mills. So the significance of that is because of increased taxable valuation, which is a result of partly increased property values, but also a result of major construction going on in the district, both on the commercial side with places like Blue Cross Blue Shield. This new town pump, when it finally is on the tax rolls, will have a significant impact, but also just the increase in residential taxpayers in the district has reduced by half the number of mills that we have to assess to meet our debt obligations on the high school. That doesn't mean, and this is a very elementary analysis or explanation, but it doesn't mean you should expect that your debt service is half of what it was in 2018, because your property value is probably nearly double what it was in 2018.
You can be paying the same amount
Right,
of money.
but you're probably paying the same amount of money, even though your property value has increased significantly. If anybody saves their tax bills for 6 or 8 years back, I'd be really curious to hear your observations on that, but this is the information that they're sharing with us. And it's just significant to understand that with all this growth and the problems that it creates, it also does create kind of its own version of tax relief as property values increase and as there are more taxpayers in the district. The remaining pages, the slides that I put in there, do things like they list out the top taxpayers in the district. You might be interested in reviewing that. There's a review of enrollment over the years, which has kind of settled in and been pretty steady for the last 3 years now that the high school is full to capacity. Trends in taxable valuation. I'll let you kind of look through those, but I just wanted to kind of highlight those two things for the board.
Before we continue on with this discussion on M-Solar app, any questions? I want to take one moment if I could. For those of you in the audience, I'm assuming that you're all going to be here for new business under the first item. We might still be a few more minutes discussing these other things. If you would like to take an opportunity right now, please feel free to grab a seat. Because I know that.
You don't have to stand.
Yeah, there's no sense in you standing unnecessarily, but entirely up to you. Okay, perfect.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Okay, any other insights?
We went, the junior high principals and myself went to, what was that one on CTE, on career and technology education, and how they run it in the Park County District at Livingston. Thought it was fascinating, and certainly something we could steal a whole bunch of ideas off of the way that they formatted it from 7th grade, 6th grade, all the way through to the senior year level, to get these kids kind of involved in those industries, and how they partner up with the businesses in Livingston. So we're going to probably talk about it tomorrow. Leadership meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
So really good things that they're doing there at Park High School.
Okay. Any other thoughts from those lieutenants?
I just think overall, it was more applicable to principals this year.
I thought so too.
But yeah, I thought it was a better conference out of the last 3 that I've been to. I will say that the keynote speaker at the beginning of the conference, when he talked about the Tell Me Something Good thing, for those of you that didn't go, just kind of talked about just spreading more positivity and not just asking how you're doing, because either you can get a, yeah, I'm good, or you get the negative, so we tried to tell me something good. So I brought it back, tried it with a hall on a 8th grade girl that I have a pretty good relationship with, and I just said, tell me something good. She walks by, she's like, who hurt you? So I don't know, I failed on that, but
It actually has worked on staff that come in like in a rough morning and stuff to reset them though. We have some that are humbugs, and Kemp asked one, tell me something good, and she kind of froze. And I'm like giggling in my office, and it like redirected her, so I liked that part too. I also like to go into the academy and the charter school one, because everybody was getting ready to do the charter school, and I was like, oh, we're in a breeze right now, because they're just starting. So knowing that we've already gone through the bumpy part, we're like still bumping, but ironing out what we've already put out is nice to hear.
And don't feel bad about your reaction that you get from, tell me something good. He actually presented, the reason why he came back for MCEL is that he presented for a COSBA event that we had in Missoula back in the spring. And his version is pretty similar to what he provided there, but he talks a lot about that. He talked a lot about that during our conference, is that the reactions that you get initially are going to be something, you know, you're gonna get some strange looks and comments on it because it's not usual. It's not what people are used to hearing and seeing, so keep it up.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? Well, one thing, Mark, I'll throw it up to you. Is there anything that you had there?
Well, a couple of things that, and of course, I don't hear well. Panel discussions are not really workshops. I mean, they had several panel discussions and I went to 2 or 3, and it was hard to follow along. It's one thing if somebody's standing up and I can see their lips and stuff, if I'm in the back and they're in a panel discussion, they're talking to one another, and I feel like I'm being left out of the deal. The only other thing that really came to mind is the last speaker. He said he was going to move us out of our comfort zone. And I realized he has no idea of where my comfort zone actually is. So, not a good talk, but that's enough.
So you handled the warrior cry just fine, huh?
What? Well, the people that were sitting in front of me went, what? You know, I've been faith kids for 23 years. I don't have any comfort zone.
Well, if there is any insights like that, like the panel discussion or some of the other things that you've thought of, even the principal, the enhanced principal presence as far as those workshops go, please feel free to ship them off either to me and I will share them with MTSBA, or go contact them directly, and we'll definitely try to, we're always seeking ways of improving the experience at MCEL, trying to get that, and it's tough. There's so many organizations involved, and each one has got their own little agenda that they would like to see, so, you know, to come up with that balance sometimes can be a challenge, but any ideas that you might have are very much appreciated. I would just say the ones I attended were mostly based on legislative advocacy. They talked about how to, what to do, what not to do, those types of things. And then it also got into some of the things that we're looking at for the future, you know, the next legislature. Now that the election is over, we know pretty much who the individuals are that are going to be in the legislature, and we'll start now figuring out, you know, what the challenges will be. But I mean, I think it's no surprise that the Senate might be a little bit more of a challenge for us at the state level than the House was. Usually it's just the opposite. But there will be, you know, things for education, public education, challenges that we'll have to work through, and I think that it's going to overall be a positive experience. But beyond that, I thought it was a good conference, enjoyed it. But one thing I would like to say is that talking to some of my counterparts over those 2 days, it just, and this happens every time, but this reinforces to me how well of a run school district the East Helena Public Schools actually are. And I'm saying that all the way from the board to the administration, to the staff, to the community and parents, to the students themselves. There's a culture that is associated with the East Helena Public Schools that a lot of these school districts do not see. They're not, this is not happening. And so when we hear about schools saying, you know, well, we're interested in getting into the charter, we've already done that. Talking about childhood literacy, we're already working through that. CTE programs, we are learning how to improve our program instead of trying to lift one from the ground up. We're already there, and it just shows that we're a very proactive school district, and it just, I get excited after leaving that. You don't want to spike the ball for somebody that might be having issues or having problems. But dang it anyway, I take pride in our school district, and I do like to spike the ball every once in a while. Yeah, Mark.
Well, it's not only taking pride in it, I'm just glad we don't have to deal with the issues that these people are having to deal with. I mean, we can come in here and still be proactive and make improvements, and they still have a fight ahead of them. And I just assume not fight at this point. I'm too old.
I laughed at one of the board members from Kalispell, and they said, well, at least we're not Kalispell. And she looked at me and she said, I would like to move back to East Helena.
Yeah.
Okay, well, any other thoughts before we move on? Yeah.
I want to thank the legislature for having the youth fund at the same time period, because it was a great youth fund. So, I didn't go to the conference, but both boys were successful, so.
Good, that's
Okay.
awesome.
Okay. Okay, moving on, we'll go to item number 3, which is Resolution 238, bid opening for obsolete and unused equipment. And before the board last month, we approved Resolution 238 to get rid of some unused equipment, including some unused vehicles.
2 old pickups and 2 old lawnmowers.
Okay. And we have one bid for the 1-ton Chevy flatbed. And this states, Dear Mr. Rispens, I would like to place a $100 bid on the flatbed truck you have up for auction. Thank you, Perry Gardner, and there is a phone number attached.
And full disclosure, Perry is a sometime employee of ours. He's worked for us off and on. He's a retiree, and he helps out summer maintenance and things like that. And so he has kind of had his eye on that truck for a very specific purpose. And I think that's a pretty fair bid for it, because he's gonna have to tow it off the property to get it out of here.
And he does know that, right?
Yep, he does.
Okay.
He's fully aware. He needs something to haul water with to his house. He lives down in Arizona in the wintertime, so I don't know how he's gonna get it down there. But that'll be Perry's problem here shortly. You guys accept the bid?
Okay. So, at this point in time, I would entertain a motion to approve the awarding of the flatbed truck for a bid of $100 to Perry Gardner, and then to authorize the superintendent to dispose of the remaining property as prescribed by state law. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second?
And a second for Mark. We'll let you cash up, Ray. Okay, Joe?
Yeah,
Okay. Are you sure?
I think so.
Okay. Okay. Any questions or comments from the board?
So will those go to, is it more vehicles? Will they go to the auction? Will they go to,
I think that we may have an employee who's interested in the other pickup, so I'll talk to him and see if he's still interested, if he wants to buy it. Next step would probably just be put it on Craigslist and see if we can get a few $100 for it. That truck is a little more usable. It's a 4x4. It's got a failed transmission in it right now and a decent set of tires on it, but it is pretty well rusted out too. So we'll see what we can get for that. And then the lawnmowers may end up just being scrap.
do we have an auto class?
Not for that kind of equipment. They don't have room to park it down there, so.
Okay. Other questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed by saying no. Motion carries. Okay, we'll move on now to policy review under second reading for policies 2309, 2314, and 3630.
Okay, so these policies have been modified for second reading and are just back for review. I don't think there were any, I'm trying to remember, I thought there was one minor change that we made last month.
Yeah, there was, and I want to discuss that with as well.
Okay.
But that would have been under 2314, under the first item.
Did she underline
Yes, she did, yep.
Oh, under item number 1, yeah, okay.
Okay. So at this point in time, I would entertain a motion to approve those 3 policy series under second reading. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Okay, motion from Tyrell, do I have a second?
Second?
Second from Mark. Okay, any questions or comments from the board?
I have just some clerical stuff on 2314. So on page 39, line 10, just to go with what the change was, to add if the parent, guardian, or student bringing the request is not satisfied. So add the or student in there.
Okay.
Oh,
Yep.
can you, I don't have page numbers or.
It would be under bullet item 10,
10,
and it would be the third sentence.
okay.
And then just to delete line item 14, because it's blank.
Got it.
Is that good, Scott, or do we need to amend the motion?
Probably need to amend the motion, but before we do that, I would like to add to, I don't know, I understand what we did. I want to make sure that it's clear in policy. Under line item 1, it says a parent or guardian of a student or a student enrolled in the district may bring a request, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The way that reads, technically, someone could look at it and say a parent or a guardian of any student, regardless if they lived in our district or not, could end up making such a request.
Oh, because of the comma.
So should we say,
I'd say a parent or guardian of a district student
okay,
or a student enrolled in the district may bring a request to reconsider. So just adding that word, a district student, then I think we clarified sufficiently that it would be whatever's required. Unless there's a better way of handling it, and I'm okay with that as well.
I'm in agreement.
Okay, okay. Okay.
So I wish to amend my motion to include the editorials that we just discussed on policy 2314.
Okay, we have a motion to amend. Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Second by Stacy. Any questions or comments on the motion to amend?
Thank you.
Okay,
So you're amending it to include, do you want me to put that in the motion?
To include the changes made,
good for the
the
comments.
editorial changes. Clarifications, if you will.
Okay, any additional questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to amend, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying no. Motion carries. Now we're back to the original motion as amended. So are there any questions or comments from the board on the approval of the policy series as amended? Mark?
Yeah, just, so does this make it, since we've made an amendment, does this make it first reading again? Or
No.
can we go
We can go ahead and
directly to
approve it.
second reading and just, and then put it in the policy?
Yep.
Okay, it's fine with me, I just want to clarify.
Yep. Any other questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve policies 2309, 2314, and 3630 as amended under second reading, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying no. Motion carries, and it's moving forward. Item number 5, the Montana Environmental Trust Group Annual Meeting, Reflections and Discussions. Yes, I did.
I brought copies of this from the email they sent out. Do you want me to pass those out now?
That would be great.
These guys can pass around. All right.
So, I don't know if you want to start off or you want me to.
I don't, I'm not really up to speed, so I'm here as an observer on this topic today.
Okay, I will do the best I can. There was some of it that I, was paying close attention to, and some of it that maybe not quite as much, because it gets to be pretty repetitive on some of it. But we started out the day about 4 o'clock in the afternoon over with the Prickly Pear Land Trust, and they gave us a quote-unquote soft opening for the new Prickly Pear Land Trust trail system and park that's down there just to the, I guess you would call it southeast of the slag piles, between I think it's Smelter Road, what's that? Yeah, between Smelter Road and Kleffner Ranch over there. We got a chance to walk through it, down through the trails. Oh, Trish and Paul were both there, yeah. And so you guys probably have some better insights on it. But I thought it was good and nice looking park facility. Really.
It's actually a nice area.
Yeah, it is, it really is. And so the plan is to open that up for the general public this next spring. There's still some things that they're trying to do to develop it, get some signage up, get some other things going on with it. But I think it will be a valuable asset to the community and to our school district. And I know that Mary Hollow with Prickly Pear Land Trust was very complimentary to both you and Tricia and Paul and the East Helena High School for their involvement with integrating our curriculum and our students with that parkland. So thank you for that. Did you guys have any thoughts on tour?
I think it's going to be a great cross-country course.
Right. And so one thing to keep in mind, and this is something that is somewhat of a concern to me, and we'll need to follow through, is that I believe it is 2036.
That's what I was gonna say.
Okay, so we still have a little bit of time, 12 years, but 2036, the administration for that land becomes a responsibility of the East Helena Public Schools. There will be an endowment, or we've been told that there's going to be an endowment involved for us to be able to maintain it and to do the work that needs to be done. But looking out there, I mean, we're talking about, there's a walking trail bridge, there's a latrine, there's weed management that'll have to be done, additional maintenance costs, probably trash cans, payment for a caretaker perhaps. And so these are all things that will need to come about. And so it'll be a long-term benefit, but also, for lack of a better word, liability or something that we will need, responsibility, obligation that we'll need to address. So it's something to always keep in the back of our minds as we're going through with it. But I think it'll be a valuable place. They're neat, and the way the thing is described is that it will actually take you clear, eventually take you clear to the Montana City store. That the trail is going to have that kind of connection, so you'll be able to walk clear across for all intents and purposes, if you can get across the highway from the park that we have here over to Montana City store. Not sure on how they're going to get over the river the second time, or the railroad tracks. But
yeah, they've actually got supposedly a pretty good agreement with the concrete company down there, because they own most of that property along the creek. They have a little canyon there. Ash Grove, and Ash Grove already has a pretty good trail on parts of it, but
it does stop.
Yeah, it does, and there are several sets of railroad tracks that need to be crossed, and one more creek crossing that will be part of that for sure. So.
And then following that event, then that evening we all met together over at the Montana Environmental Trust Group's offices off of Manlove Avenue or Drive or whatever it's called. And we had it was an annual meeting, discussion on the status of how the lead remediation is going for the community. Also, there was a lot of discussion as far as future subdivisions that are going on. Gary Oakland, with the Oakland Group, was there and he addressed the attendees. There was also Jacob Kuntz from Habitat for Humanity who was there that also talked about it. And we've heard about it before, but Gary Oakland's single-family sites over there starting where the Man Love Cabin used to be, and then reaching out over that direction. That's going to be about 2,000 single-family sites.
Did they move the cabin?
Yes.
Yeah.
They dismantled it, piece by piece, and that it is presumably going to be rebuilt and together with all the parts and pieces well marked, put back together in the Habitat for Humanity area in one of their parks. So, or at least that's what the intention is. And their first phase is going to be, for Gary Oakland's subdivision, be about 360 homes, and then moving on from there, similar to how he developed the one over here by the Easttown High School. So there's some big growth going on there. They also include commercial property right there at the Man Love Cabin site and along Highway 12. And there will be some light industrial on the south side of the property right near the Jefferson County line. So there's definitely some opportunities for growth in that area. And then Habitat for Humanity's development, which we talked about several occasions ago, that they were talking about 1,700 additional homes associated with that. For those that aren't aware of it, there's a lot. What's that? 1,700 is what I was last told.
What did you say for Oakland?
Oakland's total would be 2,000.
So somewhere, I had listened to it today, somewhere I thought I heard like 5,500. So is that with the apartments included?
Could be, if we're talking about totals, yeah. He was talking strictly 2,000 single-family sites.
Okay.
So there will be additional multifamily apartments and other things in that area.
Like over 1,000 apartments.
And I keep hearing that 5,000 number too, so it's hard to tell for sure. And, you know, it's gonna change over time as the different portions of it get approved by the city, so it's hard to say, but I always say between 2,000 and 5,000, you know, just somewhere in there.
And then when it comes about, it'll be 7.
Right, yeah.
Well, they're sure putting some infrastructure in. I see the pipe going in the ground about 518, so.
Yeah, they're working.
And that pipe, or the concrete pipe that you're seeing over there, that is also looking at, and from what I understand, it's a separate deal that is being run by Mark Runkle. And that is going to be that development over there by Johnson's Pond, or, across the road from Blue Cross Blue Shield that you see.
Oh, I was talking about 518. I've seen all the blue water line.
That's water line for that. But that area in there is going to be developed. There's going to be some high-end apartments, condos, things of that nature in that area too. So there's a lot of growth going on. They talked quite a bit about the remediation of the slag pile, and it was kind of interesting. There was, and I don't have the numbers with me, but at one point in time, there was a market for that slag. It was being loaded off a conveyor onto trains. Trains were running it out to Portland, putting it on a ship, and shipping it clear over to South Korea for development there and processing. It appears that the group, and I believe they called it Metallica, of all names, but Metallica was the one that was the contractor for that, was unable to meet the requirements that the South Korean contract mandated. So the South Korean company then have rescinded that contract, and there is not currently a market for it. So now they've got the problem of they're starting to move it, but they don't know where to move it to until they can find a customer for that material. They're kind of at a standstill. So there was talk about how long would it take for them to get it down enough so that they could cap it. and they didn't really have any idea what kind of timeframes at this point in time, so. But they're working on it. There was a discussion, and I do not, it should be probably somewhat in your packet, but discussion about some of the selenium levels, some of the arsenic levels that were in the water systems, how they're mitigating that. It seems like some of the work that they've done in the mitigation process have been successful in being able to at least keep those plumes from moving and migrating any further than what they have. So now it's pretty much being contained to a certain area, and now they're able to work on how they're going to either dilute it so that it meets current standards, or at least get it. So that's pretty much what I have there. Most everything, I won't bore you. The pamphlet itself will bore you enough. But do you have any questions on the annual meeting for the METG? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go on to item number 6, which is our electric bus rebate in Lion Electric business.
Okay, I don't have a ton of detailed information, and I don't want to spend a ton of time on this topic. Just wanted to give the board an update that the Lion bus is here. The heat issue persists. A technician was on site the week of Halloween, determined that the unit that they installed, not only was it broken, but in his words, it was the wrong unit for them to install in the bus anyway. And he drop shipped the right unit to the district, should be here within the next week, and we should have a technician on site within the next week or two to install it and get it working. Right now the bus is not really usable because we don't have heat in it, and it's getting cold enough now that we kind of need it. So that's what's going on with that bus. And the exchange bus or trade bus has already been crushed at Pacific and recycled. And we're putting our final paperwork together with DEQ to get our reimbursement for a little more than 80% of the cost of that bus. So that's, that contract will be done here very shortly after 3.5 years of messing around with it. We still have the 3 rebates with Lion Electric. We have a couple different options what we're going to be able to do with those. I don't think after a Zoom call that I had with them last week, I don't think they're interested in allowing us to reassign them to another vendor. And I don't know why they would be, quite frankly. I mean, that would, you know, because how that process works, because we applied with them, the money actually goes directly to Lion Electric once we sign off that they've delivered buses to us. And if we were to go with a different company, the money would still go to Lion Electric, and then Lion would have to endorse the checks to whoever the new vendor was, which is their competition, and why would they want to sign over $1 million to Bluebird or International or something like that. So we'll have a decision to make, and that is, do we order any more buses from these guys, or do we walk away from it? And so I had a meeting with them last week and said, you know, this is what we're going to need to see in the contract if we're going to even consider bringing it to the board. I should have more information within the next week, and it's possible by December that I'll be bringing you a proposal as to what we might do. The one thing that I think we need to keep in mind here is, if you're like me, we've kind of been thinking about this all along, that these buses are replacement buses for the buses that we currently have in service, which they kind of are, but as we're already seeing, the technology is not necessarily quite where it needs to be for us to be able to say we're going to totally rely on these Lion buses. So the other lens that we can look at it through is, look, this is an experiment to try to help this technology advance to some place where it might actually be more useful and applicable, and the buses aren't costing us anything. And if we look at it through that lens, there might not be as much of a reason to say no to it, but I need a concrete proposal to bring to you guys to look at, and we can sit together and evaluate that and decide what we want to do. I also think that if we don't do anything within the next month or two, there's a very real possibility with the new administration in Washington DC that a lot of these programs that were originally tied to the,
Recovery Act.
yeah, it was the Inflation Reduction Act, I believe is where this one comes from, could get kicked to the curb and it might simply evaporate and go away. And, but right now, I mean, I think we're gonna have a choice of maybe moving forward with 1, 2, 3 of these buses, or maybe not doing anything at all and just letting the rebates go back to the federal government, which probably didn't really have the money to write the rebates in the first place. So we can, I just kind of want to prepare the board for the fact that I haven't completely abandoned ship on it, but if I'm going to bring you a proposal, it's got to be something that's going to work for the district. And no matter what we do, I think once we get over this hump, it's time to get back on that horse and take a look at ordering 1 to 2 new diesel buses for our fleet anyway. And I need some time to research that with Jill. I believe we have money in our bus depreciation fund to buy us 2 brand new Bluebirds if we want to. And I'm not saying that we need 2 right now, but we haven't bought a new bus, a new diesel bus in probably 2 years. And so it's probably time to renew that in our fleet anyway. So that's kind of where we're at. And I'm working on possibly bringing you a proposal, or I might just bring you a, you know, let's wipe our hands of this and move on idea here within a month or 2 too. So,
Is there anything in the contract that we're looking at that would have, you know, delivery dates and consequences for severely blowing those delivery dates?
yeah, I can definitely ask for that. And so I haven't seen anything in writing yet, but that's one of the things that we talked about was realistic timelines. So.
Yeah. And I don't think a daily type deal, but I mean, if we start getting into months afterwards,
Right.
I mean, it's, come on. You know, that's,
Right.
they all cost money, and time is money on that deal.
Right.
So, and we still don't have one that's actually
Working.
working. We haven't signed off on it yet, so from our delivery. I think the technology itself, I mean, the bus itself is pretty cool to drive in and seems to be a functional piece of equipment. It just, the little pieces to get cleaned up and then all the contracting and the support, that's.
And those are the concerns that I keep hammering with these guys.
And we don't have an issue with our diesel, but well, I guess we do, but they can.
Right.
They're a little bit more known quantity.
Right, right, and we know guys that can fix them if there's problems.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yep, that's all I got for that.
Any other questions from the board? Questions, comments?
Yes, yeah.
No more.
Are the Bluebirds, I mean, you know, obviously their business model has been affected by all this. Are they still, they have a bunch of buses ready to go, or,
Diesel or electric?
well, is Bluebird building an electric bus?
They are, yeah. And I was dabbling with those guys a little bit about the possibility of switching over to them, but the deeper we got into it, the more it looked like,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah. I'm just curious, I mean, you know, this is 3 years.
Yeah,
We've kind
Bluebird-
of been waiting on and hoping, I mean, I have nothing against electric as long as it provides the service and does it, you know, economically and efficiently.
right, and reliable. The Bluebird hasn't sold any electric buses in Montana yet. And the one issue with their product is they don't offer an auxiliary heater. So the issue with this bus is we had a diesel heater put in it, so that you don't lose so much range when it's cold out and you're drawing on the battery to heat the bus, you're using the diesel heater.
Well, could we put a pellet stove in it?
Plug it in. I like the way you're thinking there.
Yeah.
But the delivery timeline on diesel buses is a lot better now than it was 2 or 3 years ago.
Couple months?
I would say at least 6 to 8, but not 2 to 3 years like it was for a while there. And, you know, to be fair, the fit and finish on the last 2 Bluebirds we've ordered has not been outstanding either. So I think if we do decide to get some pricing on some new products, I'd say we want to look at a few different options. And the other thing I'll say is that last International that we bought from that company out of the Midwest, I think they're called National Bus. that was a used bus with about 20,000 miles on it, and we have had 0 issues with it. So that might not be the worst way to go.
Yeah.
It was broke in.
Right, well, do we need new? Do we need to,
No, that bus runs great. I've driven it, it's pretty great. All right, so that's that.
Okay, any questions or comments from either the board or the public? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on now to our new business. And the first item under new business is our Eagle Scout recognition. And I believe we have Andrew Turpin and some of his supporters here.
Yeah, Andrew, you want to come out here?
So, a lot of you guys know me, some of you don't, but my name is Andrew Turpin. And in August, I did my Eagle Scout project in the walking trails here. And what we did is we took the memorial signs out there, the 4 of them, maybe there's 3, I don't remember. But we took those out of the ground and the dead trees that were on them. And we cut and powder coated new aluminum signs to put in there. And we got donations from local nurseries, and we got the trees to just put new ones in there. The point of it was to kind of give some new life to the park and sort of a sense of pride for the East Helena community, just to kind of try to better it and could, I don't know, potentially bring in more people to use the trail system and just to make an improvement on the park.
Yeah. And Andrew worked with me throughout the summer on this project. The things that I was impressed with was his ability to plan ahead and prepare. Also, outstanding set of communication skills, both, as you can see, meeting with me in person, but also through email, phone calls, text messaging, trying to get everything straightened up. He also had to work with our maintenance crew, kind of coordinate the install and everything, and then had to rely on his skills in the shop to get these nice, really nice looking signs made. Before we had little 6-inch little metal plaques, you know, the in memory of plaques that had been either degraded by weather or vandalized. And now we have nice, what are they, probably 8 by 10 metal signs that are they?
They're aluminum powder.
But what did you cut them on? You have a
CNC machine.
Yeah, and he happens to have one in his garage that he knows how to work, and works with his dad on projects, and so that just kind of made this whole project come together and turn out really well. So I just wanted to commend Andrew tonight and give the board the opportunity to say thanks, and Scott's got something that he's gonna.
Okay. On behalf of the board and in recognition of your service to our school district, I want to give you this honor cord to be worn at your graduation, and just want to commend you for everything you've done. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Especially thank you, Mr. Richards, for all the work you've done and to help me. And you, Mr. Sommerfeld, for your letter of recommendation that you had sent them. Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Congratulations, guys.
I had an opportunity about the 10th of September, I guess, to be stranded in that park and waiting for a ride. And I was able to read all those signs, and I thought, you know, this is pretty cool to have.
Yeah.
If you didn't know the history, you wouldn't.
Right.
And now there is a historic value to the park and that memorial. So.
Yeah, and it really spruced it up, the work that Andrew did. So that's nice. And you know, that whole memorial pathway around here was something Ron and I started working on probably 22-ish years ago. And I would say, at least 4 of the trees were planted in memory of either, there's a former student that's commemorated out there, a teacher, and Jim Standard, who was legislative fiscal analyst that really helped us with the high school project, who passed away not too long ago. And the other one, I think Earl Thomas, who was Shirley's husband, and he also helped us with our first Indian Ed grants. Earl helped us write those. Yeah, cool project. Very
Yep.
cool.
Okay, moving on, we have consideration of approval for some out-of-state travel to DC.
Hi, I took a group of 35 to DC this past summer. A lot of fun. The key is we have to have 35 people to go, so I've changed it to every other year, be able to keep with that. No grade will be missed from when I started. For 4th and 5th is when I'm talking to them, but it's end of 5th and 6th grade that go with. And so the next trip I'm looking at is June 10th through the 13th of 2026. So that will be not this summer, but the following summer. And I wanted to start recruiting at conferences and just getting the word out about the trip. So I'm coming to you ahead of time to ask if I can move forward with that.
Okay.
And I think did I include the itinerary?
Yeah.
In the packet?
So, at this point in time, since by state law and district policy, it is a requirement that all out-of-state travel be approved by the school board, I would entertain a motion to approve the request for out-of-state travel to Washington DC. Do I have such a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, motion from Stacy. Tristan?
I'll second.
Got a second from Tristan. Questions or comments from the board?
How did the last one go?
It was a lot of fun. Tamika was with me. We had 4 students that did not have an adult with them. Other than that, no, I'm sorry, there were 6 students that did not have an adult with them. It was amazing to have that extra hands-on with the parents. This company is amazing. Everything is planned out for you. So it's, yeah, it was fabulous.
Okay, any questions or comments for the public? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed by saying no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Did you see your hand?
What? What did you say?
I said no.
Holly missed out this year.
That's not my fault.
Yeah.
That's your family's.
I had to live with her, so.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cammy.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just kidding.
Okay, keeping in the same vein, we have got another approval. This time it is a revision to a previous approval we made last month for a travel request to go to Vancouver. And so we will let Tamika go ahead and tell us what's going on.
So I'm Ethan Davis from East Carolina High School. We are hoping to get approval for a trip to Vancouver, Canada, this spring.
I'm Will. We had a little bit of a miscommunication with the travel agency.
I'm Chris, and we're just here to ask to, instead of go to Vancouver, Washington, to go to Vancouver, Canada.
DC?
Yeah.
Country is a small problem. It's a small problem. There was a new lady that was in charge of the company that we're using, and apparently she just assumed we knew, and every time I asked her, she just agreed to pretty much everything. And so when we found out at our parent meeting night that we were in fact going to Canada and not to Washington, it's only a small problem.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're asking that you would please approve us to go to Canada instead of Washington.
And we have brownies to bribe you.
What kind of brownies?
So high school of brownies.
Y'all got your passports?
Yes.
Yes, I do. Yo, we'll figure it out. I went to France last year, so.
Would you like the brownie?
I would love a brownie, but $25.
Would you like the brownie?
So is this why the cost was a little higher than expected?
Yeah. So when we talked the first several times, we thought it was gonna be a 10-hour drive, and we talked about having our own buses drive us there. like I did when we went to Seattle. And then when I found out it was in Canada, it's not a 10-hour drive, it's a 15-hour drive. And we're unsure about the possibility of our buses driving us to another country, which adds an extra, so we have to fly instead. So we'll have to fly and rent a bus when we get there to transport us around. So that's why the increase of the price. Yes. Exciting.
Kind of the difference between going to Orlando or Orlando.
Tell you.
Well, you know when you got off in Vancouver, Washington, that you weren't in Vancouver, I can tell you that.
They're not actually that far apart on the map. Like looking at them, they're pretty close.
When Kathy mentioned that Tamika joined her to Washington, I was gonna ask, was it DC?
But when he said BC, I thought he said DC, and I was like, wait a minute.
So, this does present some additional complications because it is
sure.
out of country. And so then at this point in time, and I didn't hear because there was some side conversations going on, but how's the transportation planned on doing it? How would you get there? Is it going to be through the bus system?
So we're gonna have to fly.
You are gonna have to fly?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's probably the best situation. I think the plane looks like we're flying out of here, going to Salt Lake City, and then all the way up, you know, to
Which
Vancouver.
would make sense.
Yeah, and then we'll have to rent a bus once we get there to transport us around,
Okay.
so.
How many are you looking at taking?
Last count at lunch today, I was at 37. So
okay.
that's
So you can't
parents
just have
included.
like a passenger van, it has to be a
It
bus.
has to be a bus, yeah. 6 adults, I think, is what I have signed up right now, so.
Did you get more once you found out it's Canada and not?
I got a few less and a few more. A few were like, I can't afford the extra cost. A few were like, well, sure, I'll go out of country. So, yeah. Some I didn't think were gonna go with us, and then they made the changes.
And so does this change any other elements of it as far as the international travel goes with it, or is it still the same?
Passports or real
Yeah.
IDs, you know,
Yeah.
I'm figuring all of those details out.
Mhm.
But other than that, not really.
Is it spring break, is that when you're going? Or-
No, May.
May, okay.
Yep, 22nd through 25th, 6th, 26th,
Yeah.
so.
I remember when you used to be able to cross the Canadian border without a passport. I think it's probably best to have one now.
Yeah, I grew up 20 miles from the border, so I went to Canada all the time, and it's a big difference now.
Mhm.
3 miles from it.
Yeah.
Okay, so like I said, we did as a board previously approve the travel, but it was with the understanding that it was Vancouver, Washington, as opposed to Vancouver, BC. So at this point in time, we need to revisit this, and so therefore, I would need a motion to approve the travel request for the out-of-country travel for the East Elmwood High School choir. So do I have such a motion?
Make a motion.
Okay, I have a motion from Tristan to approve the travel request. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mark. Questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments from the public? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying no. Motion carries, so the brownies must have done it.
Thank you, Chris.
Bye. Thank
So we have one more out-of-state travel request.
Yeah, lots of travel on tonight's agenda.
And I'm not really sure exactly what we are approving when we do this, Dan, but.
For me?
Yeah, because we didn't have to approve you.
Going to Paris?
Going to Paris last week, so therefore, why are we approving?
Because I think it's in my contract
Yeah,
that if I travel for work, that you approve it. That I won't travel outside the state for work without work approval.
So you didn't do any school board business when you were in Paris?
I did not, absolutely. I didn't even think about you very much while you were here.
I'm disappointed.
I bet.
Very nice.
Yeah, so this is a more preemptive thing than anything. I am looking at possibly attending the National Superintendent's Conference, I can't remember what it's called, AASA, American Association of Superintendents. And that conference is in New Orleans in early March. And I'm kind of on the fence as to whether or not I'll go or not, but the early registration closes here very shortly. And so I wanted board approval in case I make up my mind that I was gonna go. There is budget for it. The last time I went was 2 years ago. It was in San Antonio. I was also gonna request tonight to possibly travel to the National Title I Conference in February with a group of teachers, but the dates conflict and I won't be able to go with that group. But the Superintendent's Conference is still a possibility, so I just put that on the board agenda for approval tonight to get your blessing to book that in case it works out.
So with that in mind, we have a request for approval for allowing the superintendent to travel to New Orleans. So do I have such a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, a motion from Tyrell. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mark.
Tyrell is the first one?
Yes.
That was a toss-up.
My radio was closer to my. Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments from the public?
Mardi Gras is in early March. Is the timing is suspicious here.
I also need a bead account. Is it really?
Yeah, March 4th. March 4th.
Oh, you're kidding.
Well, that might be a.
It's Fat Tuesday. Good luck finding a hotel.
Yeah, okay, well, that could actually control it, so. I did not realize that. Right.
Any other comments from the public? And thank you, Kate. Appreciate that. That is nice to know.
I will Google it.
Crossed my mind, wondering when it was.
Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by saying no. Motion carries. So, if you so desire, you have our approval.
I'll let you know.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, next on the agenda is consideration and approval of the financial report to be submitted to the Board of Public Education for our 227 Academy Charter School.
So this is a Board of Public Education requirement. In my best estimation, it kind of amounts to much ado about nothing. We don't do these kind of quarterly expenditure reports on any of our other schools. And the board is getting a little bit of complaining from some of the charter schools that the amount of reporting and accountability with our charter schools is actually more than what we're doing with our other schools. So that the actual reporting part of this, you guys, it's in your supporting docs, and the second page, those two text boxes that have the explanation of expenditures in them. That's the whole report right now for the first quarter. And then there was about 10 pages out of Black Mountain Software that are just the detailed reports of the expenditures that are attributed to the 227 Academy so far. That we'll be submitting to the Board of Public Ed for their review. And it is required that it needs to be signed by the clerk and the board chair, so I'm off the hook on this one. And that should have board approval before Jill and Scott sign off on it. So that is why it's on the agenda tonight.
So at this point in time, I would entertain a motion to authorize me and Jill to sign this financial report to be submitted to the Board of Education District for the 227 Academy.
So moved.
Have a motion from Tyrell. Do we have a second?
A second.
Second from Krista. Questions or comments from the board? Dan, the complaints that you are hearing from people making to the Board of Education for the reporting requirements? Has anybody heard any response from them?
Not really.
On why or what?
I kind of want to get a one-on-one with McCall about it, but I'm also not wanting to kick the hornet's nest too much on it. But the quarterly reports, we do an annual trustee financial summary in August that the board approves, and that gets submitted to OPI, and that's for a $14 million district budget. And so it's unclear to anybody why they're demanding these quarterly reports other than it's just new and something different. We also have to report on our quality standards. I can't remember the right language to use. Lindsay's been taking the lead on that, so we have a group of 12 or 14 items that we have to report on quarterly in the first year of operation. And then we were also advised that we'll have to run the charter schools through the same accreditation process as the other schools, and that we are obligated to do the same OPI reporting in our fall report that we do for all our other schools, which includes reporting seat time in a school that is supposed to be unleashed from the restraints of the typical Chapter 55 accreditation standards to incentivize innovation and thinking outside the box. And so that's just my beef with the whole thing right now is you guys told us that you want us to think outside the box and create a new delivery model for education in our community, but you want us to be accountable to the same reporting standards that every other school in the district and in the state is responsible for. So how can you expect to have schools that look different and act different if the accountability is the same as every other school in the state?
And
So-
during the board meeting, one of the board members during the board part with our variance, one of the board members said, "Why are we going through this? Isn't it supposed to be a charter?"
Right.
And she was like, "We know, as of right now, it looks like this, but it's probably gonna change." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, we'd like to know before."
And I don't think there's any ill will or even a control freak part of this on the part of OPI or the board. It's just that there has to be accountability, just like any other government organization, but they don't know any other way to hold us accountable than the way they've always held schools accountable. And so it's a frustration, and it feels like we were told to innovate and be creative, but then on the back end, we're told to, well, you're gonna be held to these expectations.
Think outside of the box while we continue to push you back into the box.
Right.
Yeah, and it's been notorious for it, and usually it comes from OPI as opposed to the Board of Education, and I agree with you, I don't think that we should necessarily kick the hornet's nest because the Board of Public Education has been very helpful in getting us through this, and so I don't want to trash it.
Yeah, and
too much,
I
but
think
it's-
everybody's got good intentions.
Yeah.
It's just that over time, as these things grow and develop, I hope that they can innovate and be creative in how they want us to report progress and report, our academic innovations to them. One thing that the Board of Public Ed is supposed to do is they're supposed to visit all these charter schools. And they're actually, so we're planning to have a Board of Public Ed meeting at East Helena High School in March. And that will help us to meet that obligation to have board members visit our charter schools. But, so those types of walkthroughs from members of the Board of Public Ed is a way better assessment of how your school is operationally managed than submitting a report like this. But
Is there any potential, because we got the legislative session coming in and the last legislative session made the action, if we would have waited till the August reporting, it'd have been too late? Do you think there's anything to that standpoint that by getting these quarterly reports and having them more frequent, that they can get more information back to any, like how is it going?
it could be. I mean, I'm probably a little bit ignorant yet about any legislation that's coming on the part of public charter schools, but I do expect that there'll be some tweaking of the
Just if
regs.
there's, I mean, that, if you have no data, that's one thing, whereas if you have something to say, well, it didn't tank and it didn't, whatever, I mean.
And that could be part of it, for sure.
At least
It's
the
an
financial
experiment,
side.
yeah. And I understand that that these state agencies have an obligation to report back to the legislature as to, what they're doing with the money. But it just, the last few things that have happened the last couple months were just, some of us are just kind of rolling our eyes. But we'll get through it.
Okay, any additional questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say no. Motion carries, and Jill and I will get that signed and sent out, so. Okay, we'll now move on to an update on our district's budget and our future projections.
Okay, so that page was in your packet. Gus, if you want to scroll the other way. There you go. These are very, we're painting with a broad brush in this report. Jill and I worked on this together last week and the week before. And what we have to do to try to even come up with some of these estimates is take our fall count and plug it into this year's budgeting spreadsheet from OPI, which won't be next year's budgeting spreadsheet from OPI, but at least it starts to give us a picture of where we might be headed with the budget. When we looked at this last year, our A and B count was down about 36 kids, I believe. Looking at it this year, we're up nearly 100 from last year. Out of those 100 students, we anticipated at least 32 of them would be with us just from expansion of early childhood, because we added 2 classrooms of early childhood for our 4-year-olds at Eastgate. We also expected a year-over-year increase because we graduated a class of about 96 and we enrolled a kindergarten class of about 127. So the kindergartners coming in were a net gain over the seniors that were going out. So we did have a nice bump increase in A and B in the district. It's just a little bit hard to say, look into your crystal ball and tell you exactly what that's going to mean for our budget next year. We do know, one nice thing is we've settled negotiations with the teachers and classified staff, so we are able to look ahead at what our employment costs will be going into next year. So that's that big number you see in the top left hand there, that 495. That's what we anticipate for steps and lanes and negotiated increases for our hourly employees. Inflationary increases for supplies, textbooks, fuel. Actually, fuel keeps going down, so we like to see that trend. And it's hard to say what's going to happen with utilities. But last year we were predicting much bigger increases for inflationary increases, but we're anticipating that might amount to about $10,000 in the budget. And then health insurance is a wild card. We have to use a round number for that, and you use 7%, is that?
We use 7%, which is what we did this year.
Which would be super nice if we can hold it to that. So we're anticipating pressure on the budget next year amounting to about $627,000. On the right-hand side is our current general fund budget, which is at $14,172,701. If we use our fall count A and B in the current formula, that would put our budget next year, just with the increase in student numbers, at $14,692, $722, which would be a $520,000 increase, which would almost get us to the anticipated increases that we expect. There is talk that we could possibly see a 3% increase to the A and B schedule, the school funding formula again in the legislature. If we apply that to our budget and we actually, we dumb it down a little bit to what we use, 2.65. And the reason for that is because that 3% increase will apply if you're at 100% of the budget cap, and we're at about 86%. So we don't realize a full 3% increase. That would put us at a little over 15 million for the budget, and that would be about a $900,000 increase, which would possibly create a situation where we wouldn't feel pressured to run a levy. So that might be a little bit of relief for us. So throwing that out there so that trustees kind of have an idea. what might be coming our way. And it's hard to say what'll happen with the legislature. The last several sessions, they've attacked school funding in the first month of the session, and that's given us a pretty clear picture. This year, there are a few wild cards being thrown in there. The Coalition of Advocates, is that what we're called?
Camps, yeah.
They've got a few other funding proposals, and sounds like some legislators to carry those proposals, which could boost our budget even more from that amount. And if that happens, we'll have to probably pull the board budget committee together to look at that increase and then set priorities for where we want to go with that money. We've got, and that's what's down lower on the screen if you scroll down a little bit. Just kind of looking at what we cut last year as a place to start to what we would build in if we had the budget for it. And so we'll know more hopefully by February or March if we need to pull that budget committee together to kind of set a priority list for where we would want to go with those funds if some of those things actually happen. But I'm not counting those chickens right now. So, questions about that?
Just give everybody a heads up is that it's going to be a bumpy ride when they the legislature starts discussing it, because they're talking about wholesale changes in the way schools are funded. Changing the amount that A and B, so there'll be less reliance on an A and B and more reliance on a basic entitlements. They'll reduce the number of basic, or reduce the dollar amount for each basic entitlement, but they will also decrease the numbers of students that trigger that, so we could potentially get more basic entitlements. And just doing some of the math that we've seen as it stands right now, the East County Public Schools looks that it's not going to be a great big windfall, but right now, based on what our population is and the number of kids, quality educators we have, and the basic entitlements that we potentially get, we come out ahead. But the sausage is not even really started to be made legislatively, so it'll be a bumpy ride as they go through the process.
And I totally agree, and I think camps has great momentum and a lot of really good ideas. The thing that has me hedging my bets is that the decennial study is set to happen after this legislature, which is a 10-year study of school funding formula, and I could see many in the legislature kind of throw up their hands at some of these suggestions and say, look, we're looking at the school funding formula after the session, why would we rewrite it now? And maybe dig their heels in a little bit on that. So I'm just, it would be, like Scott said, a windfall to the district if some of these funding and revisions to the funding formula got pushed through. But I'm not gonna sit here and tell you to hang your hat on that and expect, a bunch more money in our budget next year. So.
Yeah.
But just due to increased enrollment, we're not in a terrible situation right now, the way things look. I do expect that A and B number to drop from fall to winter like it did last year. If you looked at the enrollment chart, I think we were down to 8 students from this month versus last month. So if that trend continues, we could be down as much as 30 by February when we count. Some of that happens at the high school with just some of our kids deciding that they're going a different direction. But we are also kind of seeing some families packing up and moving out to places where it's cheaper to live or where their jobs are taking them, so.
Okay. So this will be the first of many updates that we'll be receiving over the course of the next several months. So.
Yeah, and I felt like it was important for trustees to know what that percentage increase could do for our budget, because it's pretty significant if it gets approved, so. It'd be very helpful.
Okay. Any questions? Yeah, Mark.
Just the basic entitlement versus A and B, is it, if I'm understanding it right, it's more beneficial for the bigger the district or the more buildings you have in your district. Wasn't the basic entitlement used to be a building
It used to be, but now it's just by grade band. You get one for elementary, one for middle school, one for high school, no matter if you have one high school or three. That's how I understand it.
That's correct.
I think the main reason for the shift mark is to smooth out the highs and lows as you have fluctuations in enrollment. So that whole thing where you have districts crying about declining enrollment and that's why their budgets are shrinking, this it wouldn't eliminate it, but it would smooth that out, make it less impactful on your overall budget.
Well, last year, it was very impactful.
Right, it was, we felt it, for sure.
And there's some schools out there, they'll lose 5% of their enrollment. Well, you can't get rid of 5% of your staff, 5% of your heat, 5% of your bus routes. So those are gonna be fixed regardless of what's going on, but yet you're gonna be losing 5% of the funds associated with those students. And so I think that's what they're trying to do, is that they're gonna make ranges so that instead of just one basic entitlement for a school, you might get a basic entitlement for a certain number of kids. Anything over and above that, you'll get another basic entitlement and going in, so then therefore it expands it. The pie itself will remain approximately the same, but how that pie is divvied up is gonna be a little bit different. And there are some very strong members of the legislature, very high-end leaders in there that are actually on board with it, and that will be pushing it. So it kind of gives us some good hope that there will be some decent movement on it. But
It's got momentum.
Yeah, but it's all, it's gonna be a wild card.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on now to the consideration of a memo of understanding with the East Helena Education Association regarding our sick leave donation.
Yeah, so Kate chatted with me over a month ago about the possibility of us making an adjustment to Article 12.3.2 in the master agreement that relates to the donation of sick leave, and for the remainder of this school year, lifting the limit on the number of days that one teacher can donate to another for the purpose of maternity or paternity leave. We have a significant number of teachers on staff who are going to be in need of maternity leave this year. And we have also a significant portion of our teaching staff that would like to donate more to those young teachers to help get them over the hump through their maternity leave, so that they don't have to go unpaid for that significant amount, sometimes up to 12 weeks. And so all we're doing is acknowledging that and allowing that to happen. It doesn't change the agreement forever. It's just that in this particular year, there's just a higher level of need. And it'll give us a chance to see how that works. Some of our veteran teachers have significant sick leave banks that they'd be willing to share with some of these younger folks. So did you want to add anything, Kate?
No, but there's one teacher that's not maternity, it's all sick leave.
Okay. Well, this says maternity. Yeah.
So does this need to be changed?
Would it stop us from donating for someone who is sick that isn't because they're?
Yeah, because that last line in the first paragraph says of the master agreement, when the donation transfers are made for the purposes of maternity or paternity leave.
Can we change that to just sick leave?
We could put a period after master agreement. Is the teacher you're thinking of the same one that I'm thinking of?
Probably. But the last time we did this too, it was someone who was sick. It
And
wasn't for a maternity leave.
Right. I know.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking of. So I'm okay with that. If the board is okay with that.
So what you're saying is get rid of the behind master agreement, put a period, and then the rest of it kind of just goes away.
Yeah.
Okay.
The teacher, she's talking about has a husband who's battling cancer.
Yeah.
And we made an adjustment last year specifically for that individual. Very similar to this one. Is that what you're getting at?
Was it written the same way? I mean, was it written for?
Yeah, I actually used it to write this one from last year. And to be fair, there's a way out there on the horizon benefit to the district here. When that leave gets donated and used, first of all, a teacher who's donating the leave, if they're a veteran teacher, it's probably worth almost twice as much to that person than it is to the new teacher that they're donating it to. So that leave is getting paid out at that lower rate than if this person used it. And if this person kept it and then retired with it, they actually would only get 25% of it upon retirement. And what that does is if they lower their sick leave balances, it actually lowers our compensated absences liability on the books that we have to maintain a fund to be able to pay out. So there is a slight financial benefit to the district. And then it's just the overall culture of the district that we've got veteran teachers wanting to help out younger staff.
So does it kind of open it up to everybody, or is it just for specific?
So this adjustment would open it up to anybody.
Okay. And do they like put in a request for it, or?
Yeah, they have to request it, and it has to be approved by Kate and me. And then they can solicit donations, and they only get the leave that gets donated to them. So it's not like there's a pool that they pull from. It's just, if you put in a request and we all gave you 2 days, then you get that many days. And somehow Jen Weedbush in the payroll office keeps track of all that. So she has a very complicated spreadsheet.
I just want to add that I created that spreadsheet.
Good job, Jill, good job.
Right now, they're the one that they can only do 32.
And there's still a limit too on how much a person could receive. There's like a legal limit, like the law limits the amount you can receive. This just gives, like, I have a lot of sick leave. I've been in the district a long time. I can only donate 4 days a year. But this way I could donate more days.
So if they end up not using it, does it just go, disperse back to who donated it?
It goes back to
You're like,
She
you have to
doesn't-
deal with it again.
She doesn't pull them until, so if she has an email, she keeps track of it, and she pulls them as they come in. So if they don't end up needing it, it just never gets taken from the teacher.
So at this point in time, I would entertain a motion to approve the memo of understanding with the deletion of the restriction for purposes of maternity and paternity leave only. Would somebody be willing to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second from Tyrell. Questions or comments from the board? I just want to say, I appreciate it. These things are always a little bit dicey when you come in. You never know how it works as far as the moving parts go. But I do appreciate the teaching staff wanting to do this and to donate to their counterparts. And so that shows a high level of loyalty, and so that is appreciated. So, and I think that the district can do the same.
Yeah, thank you. I've never seen this many needs for donated leave. I mean, we just have a young staff, we're a starting family, so that's the majority of it. But this is a lot of people who need leave. So thank you for allowing us this year to do it.
How's the sub list going?
What's that?
It's better than it has been, but still not long enough. Yeah, it's a concern.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments from the public? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed by saying no. Motion carries. Okay, next item on the agenda is consideration of legislative advocacy for the school district.
Yeah.
I'll let you kick that off.
So, lots to talk about the legislature tonight. So obviously, you know, the session's coming up here in early January. And the board can consider directing the board chair and I to advocate for the district or on behalf of the district with the 2025 legislature. We like to operate under that umbrella with the board's blessing. And as Scott and I have discussed, there's a fair amount of trust here that you guys are placing in us, that we're advocating for issues that you care about and are important to you. And that we keep our focus on what's going to benefit the community of East Helena and the kids of East Helena. If something came up that was really controversial, we bring it back to the board to discuss before taking a position on it. But this is a legal action that's recommended by the MTSBA to direct us to do that so that we're not speaking on your behalf without your blessing.
And especially with the superintendent, since he is an employee of the district, the board needs to officially direct him to do so. I like to have this in place if you're interested in me doing it, just because if I get up there, I can either talk on behalf of the East Helena Public Schools, on behalf of Montana School Boards Association, on behalf or on behalf of myself. There's a higher level of credibility depending on how I address that. And I would never advocate for a position that would necessarily be contrary to the East Helena Public Schools and yet turn around and say that I'm speaking on behalf of the East Helena Public Schools. If it was contrary and it was something that I had to do as a result of my role of the board, it would be clearly spoken that I would be speaking in terms of my role on the board. Or if that was not the case, then it would be me on a personal level only. And I'm very careful of making sure that that occurs. Most of the time, that is not a problem, but there are times where it could. Mark?
Isn't this about the third time we've done this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't want anybody to think we're sneaking.
Well,
something
no,
new.
comes around every 2 years. I actually copied and pasted this right out of a board agenda from 2 years ago.
Believe it or not, it actually got to be a little bit messy when we were advocating for the expansion of the K-12 because Ron was over there and there was question mark on whether or not he should actually be enrolling as a lobbyist, as a paid lobbyist for the school district.
How much time?
And how much time he's putting in. Me, on the other hand, they couldn't touch me, but I really couldn't speak on behalf of the board, even though it was in the board's best interest. I did, because it was unanimous vote by the board that they wanted to do that, but there could be times where that might not be the case.
Depending on who's on the board and what their philosophy is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for the board, we have the request for consideration of a motion to direct the superintendent, Dan Rispens, and myself to advocate on behalf of East Helena Public Schools through the 2025 Montana legislature. So I would entertain a motion to do so if the board so desires.
Well, I'll make the motion.
Okay, that motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
And a second from Carol. Questions or comments from the board? Questions or comments from the public? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed by saying no. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. And on our ninth and final item is our distribution of our superintendent's evaluation.
I think Bill brought copies.
They're in your signing folder.
So I'm the one that gets one, or do I have to share with everybody?
I believe you have to share. I think the thoughts were that you usually do it through email, but Jen wanted you to have printed copies.
Okay. Then I did tell her to bring a few, just in case we needed them, but I got more than just a few, so. You guys really got carried away.
And if you need me any input from me, Scott, as an evaluation.
No, don't give one to Jill.
Just email me.
None for Kate, no, not Kate.
I was saying, I feel free
Brooke, you can.
to email them.
Before we put this to rest and, you know, bring it in, one thing is that we historically discuss whether or not this will be scores only, or it will be scores and comments to be included in the evaluation. Historically, we have done scores only going into the superintendent's file, and that the comments would be discussed and shared individually during our meeting. And that's worked well in the past, but I always want to give the board the opportunity to change that if they so desire. And I can just tell you the reason behind that is that there's some times where somebody will say the superintendent is doing a great job managing his staff, and then the same, another trustee will say the superintendent does a lousy job managing the staff, and then it becomes contentious on which one of those comments actually is going to be presented to the board itself. So they pretty much said if there's anything contrary like that, it's better off to just do it separately and have those discussions and just do raw scores only. So that's the rationale behind it. So I would go based on the consensus of the board.
Those scores.
Okay. Everybody good with that? Okay, then we'll do scores only and we'll discuss comments. So I will be asking for your evaluations sent to me, preferably electronically, but you should have that file. It should have been sent along with the board packet. If you could send those to me, I would appreciate it in that format, but if you can't, then I can go ahead and try to transcribe that through a hard copy. We would like to get them at our next meeting, our December meeting, but
When do you want to buy them?
just by our December meeting. So just, if you wanted to give me the day
Because
of,
we don't discuss them the next meeting.
no, the January will be our discussion. And then it'll give my vice chair an opportunity to check and verify, make sure that the comments and the scores are reflected correctly. Okay, any questions from the board on where we're heading with this? Okay. Seeing none, that will conclude this evening's meeting of East Helena Public Schools. Our next regularly scheduled meeting will be held on December 9th at the Prickly Pear Elementary Library. So for those of you that are interested in attending, please make note of that. And with that, I will call the meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
No, you're welcome. No, we're not trying to. Yeah, saying you might really enjoy it.
Donation.
Probably